All right, father found guilty on all counts, Colin Gray, for actually letting his son take his unkept, unsecured firearm to school and murder two children and two teachers.
Ladies and gentlemen, the state has arrested.
As the prosecution wrapped its case against Colin Gray, the state played jurors security footage from inside Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia. On September 4th, 2024, Gray's son Colt is alleged to have opened fire in the school, killing two students and two teachers. Cameras caught Colt Gray in class, fidgeting, texting, then eventually walking into a bathroom with his backpack, where he contacted his mother, who then called the school. A short while later, resource officers go into the bathroom and take out a different student with a similar name. Colt follows afterwards wearing yellow gloves, carrying the bag with a poster board concealing an AR-15 style rifle. The final.
I sat back and wondered how, and I'm going to let this run. How is it that they went into the bathroom? He was there. They didn't ask him any questions or question him or to see if he had anything on him, but they brought the wrong student out. So I never heard that answered before. Nobody said anything about that, but that was a big misstep, and it could have prevented a lot of this, even though you can't hold them responsible for what this kid did.
Image allowed to be shown by the court's pool camera. Colt peering into a classroom holding the firearm. Today, as prosecutors began their replay of the actual shooting, the pool camera shifted to Colt's father, Colin, who immediately broke down in tears. Over the last 9 days, jurors have heard witness testimony from Colin's estranged wife and daughter, first responders, as well as students and staff who were impacted both physically and emotionally.
After I got shot, I turned to my friend Landon and I asked him to hold my hand because I was scared.
The defense plans to call one witness to the stand tomorrow, Colin Gray. His son Colt is awaiting trial and has pleaded not guilty. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Atlanta.
So, imagine your child. That's hard to even stomach. You think about what type of child did you raise that he felt like that was the best and only way to express himself. He couldn't come to you and talk to you about what he was feeling, whether he was being bullied in school or whether he was looked down on, but he felt like that was what he knew. That was all he knew in order to express himself.
Any objections to the form or legality of the verdict?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor. Ms. Jones, if you will publish the
Now they're going to tell him his fate.
verdict.
In the Superior Court of Bexar County, State of Georgia versus Colin Gray, case number 24-CR-593-P, jury verdict. Count 1, murder in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 2, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 3, murder in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 4, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 5, involuntary manslaughter, unfaithful act. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 6, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 7, involuntary manslaughter, unlawful act. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 8, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 10, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 11, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 12, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 13, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 14, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 15, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 16, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 17, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 18, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 19, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 20, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 22, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 23, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 24, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 25, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 26, cruelty to children in the second degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 27, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 28, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 29, reckless conduct. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. This third day of March 2026, signed for Parsec.
Thank you, Mr.
29 counts. 29 counts because you just didn't have a relationship with your son, with your kid. Somewhere he found that it was more important to release his frustration through a firearm that you didn't even have under lock and key. Just because you felt he's a teenager and he knows better. It's our responsibility to have these things under lock and key. And as a firearm owner myself, when I look at this, it baffles me the fact that his kid had access just to his firearms like that. But it's more sad that his life, his son's life, the life of the two teachers, the two students who didn't even get a chance to grow up, they're gone. And it's crazy that he would get 29 counts. But it sends a message to families, man. We have to be parents. We can't let the system be our kids' parents. We can't let the school be our kids' parents. We can't even let the church be our kids' parents. We are supposed to teach, instruct, lead them, and direct them. We're supposed to show them. And we're supposed to show them what's important and so they can grow up and be a voice for them. One thing that I really cool that my wife does with my daughters is spend like quality time with them outside, whether shopping or having some bonding experience. And because of this firearm situation, I had to teach my son, even before I was teaching him before, but really get into and have those conversations with him about firearms, because it may not even be mine. We've heard stories of kids taking other people's firearms to school, something they found at a friend's house, something they found outside. The list goes on and on. The bonding that I have with my son and the time that I spend with him, I think about this, because if we don't do it now, it's not, there is a clear picture that's coming down the line that they're holding parents accountable for the actions of kids.
Counsel, do we need the services of the jury or any inquiry with the jury?
Yes, Judge, we'd ask the court to poll the jury.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, the defense has asked that I poll the jury. What I am going to do is call out a juror number. I'll ask you to stand. I'm going to ask, was it your verdict in the jury room? Was it freely and voluntarily entered by you or made by you? And is it still your verdict? Juror number 2.
So as they poll the jury, he's going to be sentenced soon. This just literally happened. We don't know how long he's going to have. His son hasn't even come to trial. This has been going on for the last year in Georgia. With video cam of him of the cops approaching him at his home, he had no idea what his son had done. Had no idea. But yet, this guy's probably going to end up spending life in prison just because his son couldn't control himself and he didn't think it was important to keep his guns and his weapons under lock and key and build a relationship with his son. Hey guys, like, subscribe, follow for more content. Right now, they're holding parents accountable for what kids do. They're starting to do it more and more. This is the season to actually start building that relationship with your children so we don't have circumstances like this taking place in other parts of the country. Lives are ruined, not just the 4 people that died, but his son's life. Son will probably never see the light of day, and if he sees the light of day again, he's probably going to be pretty old at the end of that. But this guy would never see it. Went from sitting on a couch, drinking a beer, watching a show, to now facing life in prison with 29 counts of manslaughter, reckless endangerment, and other counts. Guys, like, subscribe, follow for more content. You guys have a blessed day.